Subcompact crossover SUVs are extremely popular now here in the Philippines, and every single car brand wants a slice of that pie. Now, there are the likes of the value crossovers from the Chinese brands, but for some people who are not too keen on getting Chinese brands yet, there are other options too. And this car right beside me is one of that. This is the 2024 Kia Seltos in the top-of-the-line SX trim. In this video, let's see if this car is any good and if it can keep up against the rest of its competitors. Now let's explore the Kia Seltos from the exterior first. And the first thing that you'll immediately see here is the pretty interesting looking hood. It has some sort of a clamshell design. Of course, this is a pretty new Kia, so you do get the new Kia logo, which people still unfortunately mistake as a KN logo. You have that same design language that you will find in the Kia Carnival with this grille over here that's blacked out. There's some pretty interesting like crystal effects all over it. You get a big set of headlamps right here. These are all LEDs, by the way. Over here at the side, you also see that it's not really the biggest in its class. It still is a subcompact crossover SUVs. I know that some cars in this price range, even though they're priced like a subcompact, they're more on the compact side, but this one, the Seltos, definitely is on the subcompact side. Now, interesting things here on the side, honestly not too much. It's not that unique looking in my opinion. You do get like some chrome on your door handles. You get 17-inch rims that are also two-tone. You got some of these like matte black on your fenders, but that is just about it. While I said that the side doesn't look that unique, I do have to commend the Seltos for its rear design because of this light bar and how it has like these vertical tail lamps on it. It really does stand out, especially at nighttime when you have everything turned on. Well, that aside, there's not really that much anything else here. So yeah, there's a little bit of a lip for the spoiler effect. You have a shark's fin antenna on top. Unfortunately, despite being the top trim, and which costs a little bit of money, which I'll tell you later how much this car costs, it doesn't even come with a power tailgate. Definitely a bummer. But once this is up, you do have ample storage. It's not the best in its class. It's only just about right. This is about standard for its class. But what isn't standard is you do get a full-size spare tire, which is extremely rare in cars nowadays. So this is going to be extra convenient for you going for those long-distance trips. You don't really have to worry too much anymore. Now, just in case the space here at the back isn't enough, you can still fold down those rear seats 60/40 to expand your cargo volume. So what about the powertrain of the Kia Seltos? Well, for this SX trim, it gets a turbocharged gasoline engine. The lower trims, they're only naturally aspirated. What you have here is a 1.4-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder gasoline engine, making a pretty modest 140 horsepower and 242 Newton meters of torque, paired to a 7-speed dual-clutch transmission. While a 7-speed dual-clutch is about standard in this class, what isn't standard is, yeah, the pretty modest power figures, because most of its competitors are already pushing 170, 160, maybe even 180. But this one, well, Kia really did stick to the more conservative side of things. Now for the interior of the Kia Seltos SX, as usual, we first check the door thud. It's just about okay. So inside here, you'd usually expect most of the cars in this class to have really premium materials, right? But unfortunately for the Seltos, that is not the case. I do have to admit that most of the plastics in here, they do feel relatively durable. So over here on the dashboard, over here at the doors, and maybe even the steering wheel itself. If you shake it, yes, that feels pretty durable, but there are really some parts which are kind of wonky feeling. So this cover right here, yeah, that feels pretty wonky. This center stack, yeah, that sort of creaks, but I mean, that aside, if you're not too particular with the materials, it really isn't too bad. Now, let's go back to that steering wheel. It is leather wrapped. You get buttons for advanced driver assistance systems, which we'll get to later. Most importantly, you can tilt and telescope the steering wheel to find your perfect driving position. Now, speaking of driving position too, these leather seats are pretty comfortable, and it is power adjustable for the driver's side. You can jack it up pretty high. Now, my issue with it is if you jack your seats to the highest position, as I usually do in most cars, the screens, your dual 10.25-inch touchscreen, they look a little bit too low. I don't know, maybe it's just a personal preference thing, but yeah, that's kind of questionable in terms of perfect driving position for me. Nonetheless, these screens, they are pretty clear, and the center touchscreen even comes with wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, and you also get a reverse camera. Unfortunately, you do not get a 360-degree view camera, nor a 360-degree view top-down camera. So it's just parking sensors and that usual reverse camera. Now, other features you get over here, you get dual zone climate control. You also get a wireless charging pad. You do get an electronic parking brake. You get cooled seats too, by the way, which is very impressive. You get 2 cup holders by the center and a big panoramic sunroof on the top. Now, for the safety bits of it, the advanced driver assistance system. So you get adaptive cruise control. They call it a smart cruise control. Honestly, it is pretty good. You have a lane following assist. You have a lane keeping assist. Yeah, generally they work pretty smoothly. And in terms of airbags, well, you get dual front airbags and you also get side airbags in this vehicle. Now, for the rear seats, this is honestly where the Seltos SX kind of shines, and I'll explain why in a while. Now, first we check the door thud. So yeah, it's just about okay. So anyway, here at the back, materials just like the front, they're not exactly the best. However, when it comes to legroom, yeah, that's pretty good. The headroom is also pretty decent too. But why this car shines is, for some reason, a lot of the subcompact crossovers in this class, they don't get rear air vents, right? Or sometimes they only get one. But this one, yeah, you get 2 air vents over here. You also get a USB-C port. And check this out. You can even recline these rear seats. Again, super rare in this class. And while they don't really go pretty far back, that extra inch or 2 of recline really does help out on long journeys. You also get this quarter panel, which will also help you feel less claustrophobic in longer journeys. Now, other toys, well, there just is this center armrest with 2 cup holders. So now we drive the Kia Seltos SX, and driving this vehicle, let's first start off with its power, right? So you have 140 horsepower, 242 Newton meters of torque. Definitely not the best in its class, but does it feel underpowered? Not really. The throttle response, so I do have to admit that even if you put this in the sportiest setting, which is sport mode, I could use a little bit extra responsiveness. There are times when you're in slow city speeds, you put it in sport, it feels like it's extra responsive, but it also feels a little bit jerky. Now, speaking of that drive modes too, there's a couple of it. So you have eco, you have comfort, like normal, you have sport, and you also have a smart mode. So I really do suggest that for your daily driving, just keep it in its smart mode and you are good to go. It knows when to be extra responsive, it knows when to be less responsive for a smoother ride. Yeah, smart mode is perfect. However, even if you put this in the smart mode or even in the eco mode, when you are in low city speeds, as with most dual clutch transmissions, I find that it is also a little bit too jerky, especially in like stop and go traffic. It does tend to get a little bit annoying. But the good thing is, as with most DCTs, again, when you are on the highway and you want to go really quick, you want to go for some overtakes, that sport mode or that throttle response in general is pretty good. And that transmission too, it doesn't get jerky, it shifts pretty quick, it's pretty snappy. So yes, so I kind of understand why Kia decided to go for a dual clutch transmission with this Kia Seltos, for it to keep up with the rest of its competition who are also using dual clutch transmissions nowadays. Next would be the steering. It's pretty light inside city speeds. On the highway, it does tighten up a little bit, but my only issue with it is there's not much steering feedback. Again, that is okay for a car of this class, but the electronic power steering system, it feels a little bit too artificial. For most people, that's not really a big deal, but if you are into driving, you love driving, you're a car enthusiast, yeah, you will feel that, yeah, it's just a little bit too artificial feeling. Is it a deal breaker? Well, not really, just slightly annoying. Handling wise, as with most subcompact crossover SUVs, it's pretty decent. It can hold its own weight over corners. Body roll, it isn't too extreme. It's definitely there though. But the trade-off for that is you have a very supple ride in here. So even if you go through bumps, it doesn't hurt. It soaks it up really well. The suspension is tuned definitely for comfort and less for a sporty ride. Now for noise, vibration, and harshness suppression, let's first start with noise. In city speeds, it's relatively okay. The exhaust note is also pretty subdued. But when you are going on highway speeds already, I have a slight issue at around 80 or 70 kilometers per hour. There seems to be a lot of tire noise that does creep in here. Wind noise though, thankfully, is not that bad. Vibrations wise, this is a little bit of a downside again, because the 1.4 liter engine, despite being a 4-cylinder, unlike again some of its competitors in this class, it seems to get a little bit vibraty, especially when you are on idle. You do feel a lot of the vibration enter through the steering wheel. You touch the side of your doors, you feel it too. Is it like a really bad vibration, like a diesel rumble? Not really, but it's still there, which honestly is already pretty unacceptable in this class, because most of the other crossovers in this class, they've really ironed out their vibrations. Then we go on to harshness, and as mentioned earlier, at least in terms of harshness, it is pretty good at subduing all of the bumps on our Manila roads. Now, as much as this is sounding extremely negative already, there is something that the Kia Seltos SX does extremely well, and I really have to commend it for it, and that is the advanced driver assistance systems. Most of the car in this class, yes, they do come with full ADAS features. They come with adaptive cruise control, lane keeping assist, traffic jam assistance even, but this one, it is just super smooth. When you're driving on EDSA, for example, when you're driving on the Skyway, when you're driving on SLEX, even though there's a pretty tight curve, the Seltos' like lane keeping assist system does it really well, and it isn't too sensitive. Where in other cars you kind of have to touch the wheel once every, I don't know, 3 or 4 seconds, maybe 5 at most. But this one, you can go on a slightly extended period of time without really touching the wheel. Not that we're telling you that you should do that, because that still is technically not safe and technically illegal too, but in the times that you would have to do that, at least you know that the Seltos has got you covered. Also, the adaptive cruise control in here, the smart cruise control that they say, it's also pretty smooth, it's not too jerky, and what I like about it, you can actually go into your infotainment screen and configure how responsive the adaptive cruise control stop and go function is, and how aggressive it is in terms of acceleration. Also, another positive that the Seltos SX has compared to a lot of its competitors is fuel economy, because in city speeds, and like I'm talking about really heavy city traffic, you can still return 6.9 kilometers per liter. Yes, you will say that, oh, that doesn't sound too impressive because most of the other competitors also do about the same. But when I got to try this out, we came from a pretty bad storm, and after that there was like a lot of flooding, traffic was at a standstill. That's pretty good. So in slightly lighter traffic, in my usual test, this should return almost close to 8 kilometers per liter in the city. And on the highway, you can return 18.6 kilometers per liter. Not bad overall. So with all that's been said, we now have to talk about the pricing of the Seltos SX. Well, you can get this car now for 1,688,000 pesos. Now, is it as good as the rest of its competitors? I would have to say that it can somehow keep up. However, if we take into account its pricing, I would really have to say that it's a little bit on the steep side of things. And in most videos, I won't usually say that a car is good or a car is bad. I would usually say that there is a specific customer for every single vehicle. But in the case of the Kia Seltos SX, given that pricing and what you're getting with this vehicle, I gotta be honest that it is a little bit hard to justify.